Welcome to Cody and the Cinema. Today I'm in the process of moving. My microphone is packed who knows where, as is the rest of my lighting equipment, and I have everything everywhere. This is the best I could get set up for now. And I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about the last film I watched before I left my old apartment to move into my house, The Remains of the Day, and I just finished reading here's the book as well. And I thought this was a really good way to do this video. In the midst of a move, I don't have a lot of time, things are chaotic, I'm going through a life transition. What better time to talk about this great book and this great film? And if you're unfamiliar with the basic premise of both versions, the idea is that this butler has served this English gentleman for many, many years. He's been a great butler, great attention to detail, perhaps even neurotic at times, and he is going on a vacation because the property has been sold since that lord passed away to an American. In both versions, it's a little different how that goes about, and basically in that process of going on that vacation and seeking out an old worker friendish, he starts to realize and come to terms with some things about himself, his former employer, and his life in general. And it's just such a touching and powerful story in both versions, even though there's one key difference that I wanted to talk about if you have read the book but you haven't seen the movie. Okay, here it is. If you've read the book has a lot of this like internal monologue or dialogue, however you want to say that, from the butler, Mr. Stevens, okay? And you get to really empathize with him because you're hearing the story told right from his lips. Makes sense. In the movie, the director is, and the director and the screenplay and really everything about this is a little bit more distant. So this Anthony Hopkins performance, which is in my opinion, my favorite of his, he's just like an automaton sometimes, and he's very tough to read and kind of even like in a way because he's so robotic, but he's good at his job, and that is his job. And so you don't really maybe necessarily instantly feel that connection to him that you might in the book. Maybe. I did want to point that out because these two feel like a different experience in that way. However, both stories are pretty similar in terms of him going on this adventure and him having flashbacks and kind of us working through his past, particularly with Emma Thompson's character in the film, Mrs. Kenton. And the film is really concerned, first and foremost, in my opinion, with that relationship, that friendship, that whatever you want to call it. And was that a missed opportunity on either character's part? How professional was it? How well did they work with each other as adults? There's so many questions like that. And they both are such good actors that small exchanges of an eyebrow or a smile or the lack thereof really give you plenty of leverage as the viewer. In short, it's just a really good character study that is also quite pretty. There is a shot when Anthony Hopkins is driving. He's like at this sunset scene, and it's both in the book and the movie, but I mean, that shot on this Blu-ray was gorgeous, okay? The interiors are pretty, the mansion and the estate and so forth looks sort of imposing and full of grandeur, and sometimes it's overstuffed with like stuff that's too pretty for its own good and people that don't appreciate it who are in there insulting the butler. And it can also be like quite claustrophobic in some of the scenes where, we're seeing like the help or the servants in these kind of tight, narrow corridors, and the cinematography is absolutely amazing. And there's a good shot in there toward the end that reminded me of a scene from Andrei Rublev. If you're a Tarkovsky fan, you might, if you're a fan of that film, that's my favorite black and white film. You might like pull that out and think, kind of connect the dots, okay? Pause. Get this version, this limited edition. This is the correct cover. Because on the cover, you have Emma Thompson and Anthony Hopkins in the rain under this light. The whole vibe, the whole feeling, the heart of the picture is in that cover, in my opinion. And it is just a little different than the book, although they're both excellent. So what I would say to you is, if you've seen the movie but haven't read the book, read the book. It's not that long. It's an enjoyable, fun little read. It gives you a little bit more context about Lord Darlington's Nazi collaborator ties, and vice versa. If you've read the book, see the movie. Now, I didn't want to. The only real criticism I have of the film is I do wish that we were able to see a little bit more of why his lordship was such a failure in how he fell for the trappings of the Nazis. I felt like the film maybe let him off the hook there a little bit, maybe didn't explain that completely, but that's the small thing. I mean, Hugh Grant's character does a really good job of trying to help fill those pieces in a few scenes. There's a really good scene, by the way, with Anthony Hopkins and Hugh Grant, where Anthony Hopkins is the butler, and he has to like try to explain to him the facts of life, like birds, bees. It's really awkward and really funny in both versions. It's excellent. So that's one of the great comedic scenes. You should definitely see it for that reason alone. Lena Headey's in there from Game of Thrones, funny enough. And there are a few other good casting choices. Christopher Reed, perfect as the English gentleman. The person who plays the father, I think his name's Peter Vaughn, who plays the father of Anthony Hopkins, well cast. Like, that part follows pretty closely in a lot of ways to the book. So overall, see the picture, read the book, do them both. It's great. And thank you all for tuning in to my video today. If you did like the content, I will try to get everything back to normal as soon as I am able. If you could click the like button and subscribe if you've been enjoying this or other videos. And we'll see you next time on Cody in the Cinema.